After Sputnik, of course, we got into the greatest moment in the history of spaceflight. And I dare to say in the history of humankind. The Apollo missions to the moon. For the first time, humans left the cradle. The Earth is our cradle, and we made our first baby steps. We ventured out, and our first steps on our heavenly body. That was a great moment. And with us is a person who was part of this greatest moment in the history of humankind. He was part of it, and I would like to invite him on stage, Scott Millican. So, this was a great adventure. Did you feel that yourself, that you were part of the greatest adventure?
You know, that's interesting, Andre. At the time that I was working there, I didn't really feel that I was involved in a historical type thing. I went to work every day, did my job, and we worked together with the astronauts because we housed them. We were in the same offices. But it was a long time before I really felt like I was part of something that was really historic.
Yeah. You were a systems engineer, and you worked on the spacesuits. You were responsible for the life support system. We can see you here, just on the left. Your face is just in the picture. So you were working here with some astronauts in the spacesuit. What were your tasks?
Well, we have two astronauts here, Pete Conrad and Alan Bean, and we were checking out the flight hardware, letting them put on the flight suit, the backpack, and all of the things that we have to put on. But you'll notice that this suit here, it can't be seen, but it's a one-piece suit. It's custom designed, and it's for each person. And it has a helmet, and then it has an over helmet that has a visor on it. And the backpack, the portable life support system, the lower part of it is the main part of the system that carries oxygen, water, and batteries and things that life support. And the little box on the top there was just a bottle of oxygen that would last for 30 minutes if they needed to, if the backpack primary failed.
Yeah.
So I was just...
how did you get in? Because you said it's one piece.
Yeah, you would have to, it's a one piece, and you have to get in just like you're climbing into some overalls, you know, that you'd put on. And so they would have to help each other hold a suit, and they'd have to put, you know, obviously one foot after the other and get in there, and then get kind of wiggling around in there, and then put your hands in, and then they would eventually get it zipped up by their colleague.
Yep. So there was one piece with a zipper on the back,
yeah,
and then you put on the backpack.
That's right.
What are they doing here?
Well, here we're showing just another scene of these guys with everything on, and they're practicing some work that's done on the moon. And you'll see over in the left-hand side, there's a box there, and that box is quite a special box. And we had two of them, and they were called rock boxes. They had other names, but this is what they put the rocks in to bring them back home. They were very precious.
Like these things there, regolith.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So these were the spacesuits, and nowadays I show you these are the spacesuits used nowadays. I had the pleasure, or maybe displeasure, because it's not always so comfortable, to test all these kind of suits. On the left top, that's the launch entry suit of the shuttle, and that's just one that makes it similar. You get in from the back. Now the other one is for the present-day EVAs. That's two-suited with a top and a bottom, and then the backpack is already on there. And in the bottom left, we have the Sokol for the Soyuz, and which you get in from the front. So all the spacesuits are different. And then the right bottom there is it's a Sokol. That's a Russian EVA suit. You get in from the back as well, but then with a door. And on the door, you have the backpack. So we talked about five different designs for spacesuits, actually. Now, you had to, because you were systems engineers for this suit, so you had to do your stuff as well in the suits, because you did these kind of things as well here.
Right. Well, this is, we're flying on this parabolic airplane, but we're flying only 1/6 gravity instead of 0 gravity. The 0G plane obviously flies up a certain parabola, and it will create 0G. But here we were practicing on the moon, on the airplane, how to walk and how to carry they're pulling a little trailer here that they put their things on, and before we got any real extended development for later flights.
Now you have to try out the LEM, so the Lunar Lander.
Yeah.
So this is you, on the left?
That's you truly on the left, and I'm wearing Dave Scott's suit. My colleague on the right is wearing Neil Armstrong's training suit. And what we do is we have to develop the procedures, and when we develop the procedures, we write them down, and it's by hand, and it's by typewriter. My secretary types things up. So this checklist went to the moon right here on Apollo 14, not this particular one, but this was my copy. We're going to see the checklist here in a few minutes. But I just tell you, this is what I call the as-flown copy that I sit at the console with, and it's got my hand-scribed notes on the pages in here that I was making whenever the crew was doing certain things. And so here we're developing these procedures, and then from then on, the checklist, the crew used this checklist, and there was one like this carried on every Apollo mission. So that here I'm again in a procedures development situation, and I was going down the ladder, of course, but and taking a look at the next image, we see actually an astronaut coming out of the cabin of the lunar module. He's sitting on the moon here. It's an actual photo from the moon, and he comes on down the ladder. And at this point, my responsibility is over with. We've got him on the surface, and then the scientists actually that operate or would teach them how to do and deploy the experiments would take over. So that's where that's where I ended, and then the next page shows where we came back in, and
yes,
with the helmet off.
Not very clean.
Not very clean, is it?
Did you count on it, all this moon dust? Did you realize before that this would happen?
Actually not. We didn't know this until, well, of course, on Apollo 11 was the first landing in July of 1969, which got us to the moon and back by the end of the decade. But we didn't realize this. And it wasn't until, this is actually the last mission of Apollo right here. Apollo 17 Gene Cernan was a commander. And so we started taking some photos in here. You can see on the next one, you can see what we did. We had to sleep. We never made the lunar module to be slept in. And so it was never built to make more than a day's stay. And so, it wasn't made for humans to live in, let's say. And there's two guys that are in this thing, and as crowded as it can be there. And they have to take these things off, and they have to get up, they have to sleep in there. And they had some hammocks that we finally fabricated so they could have something to sleep on. And here, these real filthy things have to get up the next day and put them on. My wife wouldn't like this at all.
Now, there's something to say about the red stripe here as well.
Oh, that red stripe. Well, that came about on after Apollo 11. We were watching these guys on televisions and pointing around and live television, which some of you probably saw. But what happened was we couldn't tell which guy was which. Who's the commander? Who's the lunar module pilot? Raise your hand type thing. Well, we couldn't tell who it was. So when they came back, they decided to put the stripes on the helmet of the commander and red things around his arms and legs. And so that's been done. That was done for the rest of the Apollo program, and I don't know if it was carried forward to any other.
Yes. You still have recognition, you still have stripes for that, yes.
How about that, man? All the way from Apollo 11.
So some things changed.
I was there.
Now, you said procedures are very important, so you showed already a checklist there, and here from the inside.
Right.
There are a lot of different ones, this size, big ones, and you also have, say, these ones.
Right. So we have this checklist takes care of all the procedures from touchdown to liftoff. And so obviously a lot of engineers were working with me to get this integrated procedure and timeline just right. Well, what we're seeing in this image is that this is the way the lunar module was landed, and they stowed these helmets that go over your main helmet that I talked about. But inside here you see that the EVA gloves that they're going to wear, which are separate from their IVA gloves. These are special gloves, and they already had mounted on them a checklist, a little checklist it was made with a spiral, a spiral, like a spiral notebook, about this long, and they just put some plastic pages in there and some tabs and all, and included all the here you can see in this checklist some of those pages that were included in the cuff checklist. And when they used that when they went outside because they didn't have any other way to read their checklist.
Yeah. So paper checklists all the time, and here as well in the lab with Neil Armstrong. And nowadays everything is electronic. We heard about that, but we still have our paper, of course. We have our paper emergency procedures. If something goes wrong, for example, if the computers break down, you need your paper procedures to start the computers up, of course. On the left bottom, that's the launch procedure. In the Soyuz, we also have our paper procedures. So in some ways, things didn't change very much. This is the launch procedure for the Soyuz. And on the right, well, procedure is very important, of course, also in your days. You cannot remember all the things. If it's important, what is most important is that you know how to read procedures. But you can find your stuff, how you operate your tools. If you have that, then you can almost do everything. And we saw this already, of course, in the Apollo 13 era.
Yes.
Now, on the way back from the moon, there were also EVAs. Why was that?
Well, certain missions, we had a bay in the command's service module, they call it. It was connected to the back end of the command module. And there was a bay there that they put some cameras in. And when the astronaut we had two spacecraft, the command module, 3-man module, and the lunar module, a 2-man module. And here they took some photographs, probably 70 millimeter. I didn't look too much at I never saw the cameras that I know of. All I did was train the guy to go outside and retrieve the film canister, and it was something like this big and about this thick, and we had no digital cameras at that time.
So that was the way to get your pictures down to Earth. You had to do an EVA, go outside to get the canister.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays it's like this. We have a lot of cameras on board.
Yeah.
We took on our flight 500,000 pictures, and of course we cannot put it all in canister. So you go to your laptop, you put it in there, and it's sent down. So communication, very important on board. Here we can see it. We have, of course, you hear constantly people talk. You hear them talk with Japan, with Russia, with America, with our own control center, of course. For experiments, the daily planning conference we see here on the left top, to dock spacecraft on the right top is for the docking of the European the ATV, and also for personal reasons. We even had our two-sided video contacts on Sundays, so you could talk with the family at home, and so that was always a highlight of the week, of course. So communication, and almost constantly. I mean, we have gaps, but we talk to the TDRS satellites. You see the antennas, Ku-band antenna, S-band antenna. So it's totally different, of course, than in those days. A lot of contact with the ground. So that brings us to this famous place, the Mission Control Center, Houston, where everything happened, where you were working.
Well, yes, this is the Mission Control Center, and there was a flight director in here, and there's 21 flight controllers, and they're working on supporting all kinds of systems, and you always had a back room also of your colleagues that were monitoring maybe strip charts and things of that nature, and you were always talking back and forth to these guys. So when we're talking in here, we've got all kinds of loops that we have the flight director loop, and then everybody else has their own loop. When I was in there, it was called crew procedures, and I would just be in there at the time when the crewmen were doing the things that I taught him to do.
Yeah.
And so
this is a famous flight director.
Yeah, famous flight director, Gene Krantz. He made his name for literally managing the saving of Apollo 13. He took his crew and 21 guys offline, and they worked about 3 days without hardly any sleep, and they had three other, it takes three control center crews with a flight director to run a 24-hour day. But we realized something else just occurred to me, that when we learned here that you couldn't run two spacecraft simultaneously by the same control room. So we had another control room upstairs, identical to this one, and we had guys doing the working with the command module, pilot.
Yeah. Now this was the final moments of Apollo 13, I understand?
Yes, it is. This is a real tenuous moment here when the Apollo 13 was finally making its re-entry. It was a total miracle. You just have to read the book written by Gene Krantz called Failure is Not an Option. It's really one of the most exciting books. I found it, it brought so much back to me. But here we have about 6 or 8 astronauts only. And you'll notice the first one sitting down there is Alan Shepard, who was first man in space for the United States. At least he did a suborbital flight. But right next to him is Ed Mitchell. Those were the 2 guys that flew on Apollo 14 and went to the moon. Well, my seat was where Ed Mitchell is sitting there. That's where I would sit, right next to the Capcom, and that's the flight director standing up there, and he's seated just right there. So that's the way we sat, and that's and here's a.
Here you are in the picture as well, and this is a moment, because what we talk about is this flight controls, how we do it, and we still do it actually the same way. But this is a handover.
Right, this is a handover. This was actually a Skylab handover. It was a mission that we did after Apollo, built some hardware and built a laboratory. So Rusty Schweikert is an astronaut closest to us, and sitting down there was Story Musgrave, and those 2 guys were the backup crew. And we were getting ready to do an EVA. And we're handing over. I'm standing up in the back there. That's me. And my colleague just sitting before me is the one that's going to take over my position. So Story Musgrave and my colleague there took over for Rusty Schweikert and myself, and then we backed out. So that's why we do a handover.
Now you were dealing with one flight control center. Nowadays on the station we have actually 5. There's 4 here. Houston, of course, everybody knows Houston, but we have one in Huntsville, by the way, as well for the experiments. We have, of course, our own flight control center, the right top, called CC, for the European systems, for European experiments. Tsukuba in Japan, and of course TUP in Moscow. So we actually deal with 5 control centers nowadays for the international space. That's what it means to be international. And all these people talk with each other, and actually more or less the same way as you did it. We have our handovers, we have our consoles, and so some things changed, some things didn't. And like Gene Krantz, the real boss of the space station is on the ground. That's the flight director and the mission director. So some things stayed the same. And this is, because you were working for NASA for 40 years. You started in 1966 with Gemini 10, and you ended here with Skylab.
Right.
It's you in the center, isn't it?
Yes, I'm in the center, and this is just showing the flight director on the right, the Capcom on the left, Story Musgrave, and myself in the middle, a colleague that I work with, and then the program manager from headquarters of the program. So we were huddled around here. This became a very famous photo that made all the magazines and newspapers around the United States, and it shows us solving a problem using a plastic reveal toy that you buy at the shop and let your son or your daughter put together with glue. And that's why we solved this problem right here in the control center. And so that's the way it went. And I just want to make one last comment about communications. We didn't have much. And everything change that had to be sent up had to be spoken, and somebody had to write it down. And when we had Apollo 13, that was a real problem because they had to write down all new procedures by hand, and to get us home.
So
very good,
fantastic.
Yeah.
So some things changed, some things didn't.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing us along. We went back in time, in the greatest time of spaceflight. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.